game 24 of the EPL, and we're getting closer to the run-in, which is the last 10 games of the season. Now, we've had quite an eventful 7 days or so where Arsenal lost at lost at the Emirates to Man United, and since then they qualified midweek at home to Carragher in the Champions League. One of the things that we did realise in the Champions League, the midweek game after the loss to Man United, is Arsenal kind of had the energy about them and the feeling of they wanted the game. It was more direct. They had more energy in the first 45 minutes. Now, we all have to reserve judgment because we know that Carragher isn't up to the level of any teams that's in the EPL. One of the things that Arteta has got to decide this weekend is whether he wants to stick or twist. And what I mean by that is, with the formations he has been playing against the likes of in the last 3 matches, there's been no real patterns of play, and Arsenal haven't been able to break down teams in probably the way Arteta wants them to. Now, is that due to the personnel, or is that due to Arteta's tactical prowess of in-game management? Now, some people can say it's a bit of both, but when I've looked at the games and I've analysed it, I don't want to be too critical because we need to see if the formation that he actually played on Wednesday night against Carragher in the first half actually works. It's something that hasn't been tried and tested, but it will be a good time to test it now, as Arsenal need a different way of playing. What I mean by this is we haven't actually seen Havertz and Gyökeres playing together, which would be, I think, something different for Arsenal in terms of they both complement each other's play, whereas Havertz drops deep and he brings others into play. If you watched it against Carragher in the first half, you realise that a lot of chances Gyökeres actually had, and he could have actually had a hat-trick off of the way Kai Havertz was feeding him. Now, looking at the match, they both scored, and Kai Havertz also assisted. So it shows that it can work. But as I said, I'm going to reserve my judgment because the quality of opposition wasn't quite there. Now, looking at everything else and Arteta, and people talk about patterns of play, I'm going to say something here that a lot of people may agree with and may disagree with, but I think he's almost got to take the handbrake off, and I think Kai Havertz, the next game, which will be a big call, has to occupy the number 10. Now, why I say that is, in games gone by, in the last 3 games, as you saw against Man United, you saw it against Nottingham Forest, and you saw it against Liverpool. Ødegaard has the tendency to come drop too deep and get involved in the link-up play when you want to see your number 10 on the edge of the 18-yard box, linking up play, making things happen, taking shots and building assists. Now, what you saw naturally was Kai Havertz actually doing that. Now, some people say Kai Havertz isn't a natural striker, but the pockets he sits in is actually number 10 pockets where he actually played at Bayer Leverkusen. So I would love to see that link up. Also, I would also say playing the likes of Rice and Zubimendi has controlled games. But what it's done in terms of controlling games, it's made Arsenal hard to beat, but it hasn't made them create, or it hasn't helped them create a lot of chances to go and win games. Hence why Arsenal, if you realise in that Man United game, for the first 45 minutes, Arsenal dominated for at least 60% possession and only had 1 shot on target. Teams have realised this kind of pattern of play, and if you realise teams that are well organised, Arsenal really struggle against, and then in the second half, they find openings from counter-attacks and spaces in behind and actually end up getting results. And we've seen that now happen consecutively 3 weeks in a row. Now, obviously, Liverpool and Nottingham Forest no one scored. But what you could see is teams that really were happy to sit in, that were well organised and that were ready to threaten on the break. Man United actually took it a step further and actually put it into practice and actually dealt with Arsenal on the break. One of the things I would like to say is, look, Zubimendi and Declan Rice, naturally Declan Rice has actually been a 6 and so is Zubimendi. And then the creativity from your 10, which is Ødegaard, who actually also sits probably on the halfway line more of the time, doesn't help the creativity. Now that's the 3 midfielders in Arsenal's midfield in terms of the people that sit in the middle of the park that are playing so deep. Now Zubimendi and Ødegaard have this whole thing of recycling play, and they don't like, I like to say, punching passes in to people's feet so they can deal with it on the turn and get into crazy areas. If you realised against Karikot, you had Havertz and Eze who almost dealt with chaos. They almost thrived in chaos, and that's what they do thrive in. Whereas it was an unpredictability of where they were popping up, and the patterns of play were so unpredictable that a lot of us Arsenal fans didn't really know what was going on, which Eze was actually playing in the left-sided 8 where Kai Havertz was playing in the number 10. Another one of Arsenal's biggest issues, which I think it's obviously been due to injury, is understanding people's play. I think the left back, as we've seen, has taken a hit since Calafiori's gotten injured, which the stats suggest that Trossard's form has actually dropped off because people that have come in to fill in there haven't been creative enough or done the role that Calafiori allows Trossard to go and express himself. What that by I mean saying is, if you notice, Calafiori gets into these positions that are very dangerous, that allows Trossard to be himself and express himself. Also, we've also seen a hit on Saka's form, which I think Ben White is more of an attacking fullback than Timber, where Timber is naturally a centre-back, which they actually both are, but you can see that Ben White's awareness and link-up play with Saka is actually smoother in terms of it allows Saka to either hug out wide or go on the inside, and Ben White can read it, and the patterns of play there were causing teams all kinds of trouble. Now, I think Arteta has got a dilemma to pick which team goes to Leeds. Luckily, the thing about Leeds is they don't play with a low block, and that has never been their style. So what you'll get to see is maybe Arteta test his theory of how he started against Karikot, probably accept Eze and putting Declan Rice back in there and seeing if it works. I also think, obviously, Ødegaard won't start, even though he had an impressive game. You'll have Zubimendi come back in. But one of the things that I think from your 6 and 8, they have to be absolutely more creative and willing to take risks. You can't feel that you're going to go and win a match or an organised team without actually giving your players, your wide players and your front players, passes under pressure, and you want to see your 10 further forward playing alongside your striker. That is one of the glimpses that we did see against Karikot, which was Havertz actually got alongside Gyökeres a lot of the time, and people were kind of confused in where to pick them up. Now, I think, as I said, the next 4 games, as there is 14 games to go, is actually crucial in determining of the running. The wobble that Arsenal have had, I don't think it was a bad thing, because it comes up with a different kind of plan where Arsenal have to create another strategy and go into another realm of thinking. I think it's actually come at the perfect time, just because Arsenal are still 4 points clear and they can bounce back. I think the other teams who are also in the hunt for the title as well, which would be Man City and Aston Villa at this stage, you would say the next 2 games necessarily aren't also easy for them. So Arsenal have got Leeds away, I beg your pardon, and they've got Sunderland at home, which are 2 newly promoted teams, which Arsenal have struggled against newly promoted teams in the past. Arsenal have got to show why they want to become champions and why they have it in their squad and why, as a team, they can become champions. I do think Arsenal playing on the Saturday puts Aston Villa and Man City under enormous pressure. And if Arsenal get the points, it then carries on to week 25, where Man City go to Anfield, and we know that game will be extremely hard. Looking at some other things, so the big question is dropping your captain, which is Ødegaard. I think Arteta has got to take a brave step in his managerial career that he probably didn't dream of ever having, because where Ødegaard hasn't actually hit the heights in recent weeks, you can't carry on awarding him spots which other players are now stepping up and proving that they can also play in that position. Now, he might get a knock on the door from the skipper, but at the end of the day, we're trying to get over the line and win a title that we haven't won in over 20 years. So it's not about pleasing the players. It's about what works best for the team and what can we actually see and try new patterns of play. Do I think this is the end of Ødegaard? I don't think so. I think this is almost going to cause a spark of fire in his belly for him to go on and prove himself in why he is this number 10 and why he is the the skipper, sorry. Looking at, just to touch base on looking at the Champions League, if I think Arsenal can win the Champions League or the Premier League, I would say Arsenal are more in pole position to win the Premier League rather than the Champions League. Now, I only say that because the way the draw is going to happen is Arsenal is going to be able to have to face, or they will have to face, an English team in the lead up to the final. And that can always be difficult. But as I said, that's just my opinion. Do I believe Arsenal can still win it? I do think they can win it, and they have the squad to do it. I think Arsenal just have to believe in themselves, and collectively as a team and in the stadium, the environment has to be more, I would say, get behind the team and act as the 12th man. We see it at numerous of grounds, St James's Park, Anfield. When the team is behind or is not doing so well, they still support their team. So my advice to all the Gunners out there is, look, let's just not get carried away and think, all is lost. We're still in the driving seat and we can still deliver what we need to deliver. 14 games to go. There's no time for panicking right now. Let Arteta at the helm take care of what he's got to take care of, and let's get these wins.